G'day everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel, and it is the big one. Going to be going over my grand final tips and predictions for the 2024 final series. It's definitely going to be an exciting one for sure. Two top quality sides, and for the final tipping video of the year, going to be going over in this video today who I think will win, but also how I reckon the game will unfold, and talk about each side's strengths and weaknesses. So should be good, but just before we get into it, let's quickly go over with how it went last week. Okay, so my tips from the preliminary final rounds, and just got myself a 1 out of 2. So the Sydney tip I was able to get correct, and to be fair, I was feeling pretty bullish on the Swannies to get the job done. Port invested a lot of energy and effort with their terrific win over the Hawks, and just felt like it'd probably be a bit of a bridge too far for them to produce that effort again from a four-quarter perspective. And yeah, Sydney just blew them out of the water. Port looked pretty tired, and just their strengths, the Swans, of ball movement, turnover game pressure, they outdid them by 6 goals. And I had more trust in Geelong than the Lions. I felt like this prelim final could go either way, and what a final it was. One of the best finals in quite some time. A final that we certainly will never forget, and the Lions were able to have a resilient second half performance. And geez, they've been one of the feel-good stories of 2024, given the circumstances they've been in, and they are making another grand final, and they were able to do the job over the Cats by 10 points. So 1 out of 2 it was from the weekend. Quick look now at my tipping comp leaderboard update. As expected, a lot of people did give themselves the 2 games correct. But as for who is leading my competition, it is still Wet Toast Eagles leading with a score of 170, leading by 1, so he just needs to get this weekend's grand final tip correct to finish on top of my tipping competition. And if you are in the top 5, stay tuned with your emails, because I will be sending out the prizes, of course. So now, ladies and gentlemen, the grand final for 2024, the Sydney Swans taking on the Brisbane Lions, and how good is it, eh? For the first time in 18 years, we finally see a grand final that is a pure neutral matchup. The first time in 18 years, of course, that both competing sides are not from Victoria. So 2 interstate clubs fighting out at it. Both quite different stories, it feels like, in 2024 between these two sides. The Swans, well, they've been the benchmark. They've been the best team in the competition this year. They had a bit of a lull throughout the third quarter of the season, dropped a few games. But ever since probably round 4, round 5, they stayed on top of the ladder. And as for Brisbane, as I said before earlier, it's one of the feel-good stories, it has to be said, of 2024. I might be a Sydney supporter, but I still got to give Brisbane their flowers. They were, 3-7 and 1 draw early on in the year. A lot of people had them written off for the premiership, and there were even questions, could they even make the top 8? I still felt at the time they definitely had the talent to make the top 8, but just how they were able to plug the gaps with covering injuries. Dane Zorko replaces 𝐓𝐶𝐞 𝐐�𝐴 in defence, All-Australian season. Kyle Lohmann, he was unable to get into the 22 for the last few seasons. He comes in and replaces Lincoln McCarthy going down with the ACL. Breakout year, and they've just had a massive turnaround since the bye. I think they've gone 13-2 the last 15 or so games. They brought across, of course, 𝐸𝐿𝐴 𝐸𝐿𝐴, who seems to be a bit of a good luck charm as well. Ever since he's come to the club, they have had that record as well, and they have made a grand final from 5th place. So it's almost like a sort of a Bulldog story from 2016. They're going to be travelling for the 3rd week in a row as well, Brisbane. So Swans deservedly the favourites in this, but Brisbane, at their best, they certainly can cause, I wouldn't say an upset, just feel like this is a genuine 50-50 game, but the Swans probably have a bit more of the advantage given they've had the extra week rest, of course. Brisbane have played 2 really close finals, and we've seen in the past sometimes they can tire out the bodies a little bit. I highly doubt it will be, though, but a bit more of the banged up and sore bodies. The ball is in slightly Sydney's court right off the bat with this. And if you are wondering, yes, I am heading down to the grand final to watch it as a Sydney supporter. Really excited, going to be driving down Friday morning, and of course I will grab some footage and make a bit of a vlog. I'm not the greatest vlogger, but I'll give it a crack. So when looking at both these teams, they just match up against each other so well. Both sides have very similar strengths. Sydney's high spread of contributors with their forward line. That's the same with Brisbane. Their front half game is one of the most deadliest out of any side in the competition alongside the Swans. Midfield battle's certainly going to be a big one. Both sides' midfield units are just quality, left, right and centre. The Swans maybe slightly better on paper with the players they have that can impact forward of centre, but Brisbane feel like a slightly the better midfield unit and been able to win more clearance, especially the last few weeks. They've been awesome in the clearance game. 𝐼𝙗𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿𝐼, he's just been so composed and really love his ball winning ability in there. And 𝐷𝐿𝐼 𝐐𝐞, he's playing not 100% of course, but still was able to have a pretty big prelim final. 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐎𝐥𝐝 is having his say with his really good decision making as well. And as for the Swans, Chad Warner loves to take the game on every possession. Errol Goulden racks up the footy across the wing. And of course, 𝐼𝙗𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿𝐼. I think he is probably the biggest player heading into this grand final. Just what he's been able to produce the last two finals, currently leading the 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐴𝐻 medalist. He is, yeah, in terms of the player power rankings heading into this game, he's probably sitting at number 1. So all the attention, I think, is really on him. How do the Lions stop him? Probably Josh Dunkley will match up on him. In stoppages, he's able to shut down or play on usually those big body midfielders. 𝐻𝐿𝐴𝐻, Lachie Neale. James Jordan will probably be able to go up to him post-stoppage. And maybe someone like on ball, Rowbottom. And then with each team's defence, I think team defence is going to be such an important say in this game, because you look at each side's forward half game, they've got so many dangerous players at ground level. Tommy Papley for the Sydney Swans, but then there's plenty of talent for Brisbane too. Kai Lohmann, Charlie Cameron can always be let off the chain if you don't guard him. Harry Cunningham will probably get the job on him, has a very good track record against him. Cam Rayner can always impact forward of the ball too. And especially with grand finals, your role players can sometimes be the key factors on winning important periods of quarters, etc., to break open a game. And there's none better to look past than Callum Archie. He's been awesome the last 2 weeks. Game high score involvements against the Giants. Kicked the winner in the prelim final game as well. So, yeah, dangerous small forwards for the Lions. And I think for Sydney, they've really got to man those ones up well. They can't let them out the back for goals. Zach Bailey as well can really light it up too. Probably Smokey for the Norm Smith medal should the Lions get up, because just think his ability to find space and break open the play is one of the better plays for the Lions. Loves a handball receive too. And I feel that's what the Lions really excel at, that high and quick and fast hand passing game, put plenty of speed on the ball in open play, accumulate a high amount of handball receives too. So that's another area where I think the Swans have really got to watch out. So I think whoever is the most composed when the ball is at ground level in their defensive 50, whoever can exit out the cleanest, that's just going to be a huge say, I think, in this game. And look what Brisbane were able to do in that second half against the Cats. I thought they were excellent defensively and worked well as a team. But also the Swans, their ability to defend as a back six is some of the best in the competition too. And they've had some big wins, not even this year, but the last few seasons as well, when they've been able to have a really strong team defence. Swannies can't be kicking the ball down Harris Andrews' throat. They did that plenty of times when they last met. So they've got to really keep him quiet. Look how big the tools were for the Swans against Port Adelaide. Joel Amani McLean were able to take those important contested marks up the ground. And if the Swans aren't able to take corridor, they will obviously take the wing, but they need service in the air from those forwards, because look what happened against the Giants. They weren't able to get anything for the ball when they went down the line, so they really needed to compete, because otherwise Harris Andrews could be having a field day. So McLean or Joel Amani doing maybe a bit of a Billy Frampton role from last year's grand final, not allow him to intercept and bring the ball to ground for the Smalls. Both sides rebound game, very deadly as well. Dane 𝐸𝐸 has made an All-Australian purely off it in 2024. He's been excellent. We've been able to give the Lions a bit of drive. He has his bad moments, and you get the good with the bad with 𝐸𝐸. When he pushes up and overcommits for contests, there's going to be a bit of a weakness with it. It will pay off. He'll be able to get to the footy first and quickly get in and go, but sometimes he can definitely give up a few opportunities on his direct opponents. So I think for the Swans forwards, you got to make 𝐸𝐸 accountable. You got to make a few of those Lions defenders that like to peel off their opponents, make them accountable, especially when you're moving the ball in transition. Sort of similar like the Cats were able to do in that first half. Brad Close and Stengel really got let off the chain when they did play the Lions. Both teams as well are able to put on elite forward half pressure. The Lions especially, and that has been a big case, I think, for the Swans this season. When they've struggled, when they've been under the pump a bit, it's because it's at the expense of the opposition's ability to put on just a havoc amount of pressure, especially in that forward half. Can't get the Swans time on the ball when they do pick it off, because if you put in a lot of shallow entries or you put it in vulnerable positions, Nick Blanky, Ollie Florent, they can just get it and go. Look what they did against Port Adelaide, for example. Their ball movement from the back half is lethal, and I think their best brand, when they're able to move the ball well, is probably the best in the competition. But especially the last 2 weeks, look what Brisbane have been able to do. They've been able to adjust in periods of games and take a lot of corridor. Their ball movement also extremely dynamic too. So yeah, either team's strengths, as said before, are just so similar. So alongside the mental side of things, I think this grand final is really going to come down to key moments. Who can take that important contested mark up the line? Who can commit and win a ground level ball? Who can win an outnumbered contest? I think this is going to be certainly big areas of this game. Quickly go over some personnel for either side. It was announced earlier today that unfortunately 𝐼𝐶𝐞 𝐿𝐼𝐴, and it is expected, he won't be getting up for this game. So it's a big out in my eyes for the Lions. To be fair, 𝐼𝐶𝐶 𝐬𝐿, I've heard he's been in some good form in the VFL as of late, so he'll come in, just bash and crash, try and disrupt Grundy, because he doesn't like physical ruckmen when he does face them, but still a massive out for Brisbane. I think 𝐼𝐶𝐞 ability to just show the aggression, win first possession, grab it, boot it forward. He's big with their clearance game, 𝐼𝐶𝐞, but to be fair, Danaher was great as that makeshift and full-time ruck in the second half against the Cats, but still, it's a big out for the Lions, the Big O. So Grundy, big opportunity for him to really dominate this game on Saturday against a second-string ruckman, pretty much. He's big on being able to win those ground balls. He was, I think, ranked throughout the year one of the best players in the competition for hard ball gets, so he's going to be critical in those areas. And yeah, the territory is such an important factor in this game as well. I think Brisbane's ability to lock in their forward half is probably a bit better than the Swans watching either side this year, and their front half game extremely lethal. So but I think if the Swans are really able to match the Lions around the footy, match them in contest possessions and clearances, and this is usually the case for the Swans. If they're able to win the contest, they usually win the game just because their brand outside the congestion is extremely good. And as for Sydney, we talked about Adams earlier, probably won't get up for this game and do the job on Neil like he was able to a little bit in last time's game. The big one, though, is Callum Mills. Still at the time of recording this video, there are questions on will he make it. Apparently tomorrow at training, if he's able to run through and get through training at 100%, I think he's ready to go. So I think for Sydney, he'll probably come in if that's the case, and someone like Robbie Fox drops out, and I think Braden Campbell would probably be the sub. I think he's that perfect impact type. And as for the Lions, they have been unchanged the past few weeks, I'm pretty sure. Connor McKenna's been the sub twice in a row, and look how good he was when he came on as a sub. He was really big on winning that ball in the forward 50 and getting that goal assist. So I think someone like McKenna would stay the sub, but it'd just be the simple change of 𝐼𝐶𝐞 𝐿𝐼𝐴 out, and in comes 𝐼𝐶𝐶 𝐬𝐿. But looking at the numbers, the turnover game, just so similar from either side. The Swans averaged 58 points this season off turnover. The Lions, 56.2. Points from defensive half, practically the same as well. Swans, 36 points a game. The Lions, 34.6. And also the forward half, the Swans averaged 48.8, and whilst for Brisbane, 44.8. So really similar numbers there. With both sides a lead ability to move the ball, I said before, pressure game is going to be huge. Who can put on more amount of pressure and disrupt their opposition, not allow them to move the football with ease? I think for Brisbane, got to really guard that corridor, because the Swans love to put it in the middle of the MCG as much as any other team in the competition. I think they are one of the highest corridor using sides in the AFL. And the uncontested game, the marking game, is going to be big in this one too. When the Swans and the Lions are able to put up high amounts of marks, they usually do win games of footy. I think the Swans are probably a little bit better of a side being able to control the tempo with their ball movement. But as for Brisbane, I think they're probably a bit of a better side that can turn the game into a bit of a chaos like they've done with the past two finals, and probably contested wise stacks up a little bit better than Sydney. So yeah, they've just really got to outdo the Swans in the ground level game, because I still think there are slight vulnerabilities with the Swans in the contested game. That's been a bit of an issue for them in the second half of the year. For example, look what happened in that prelim final. Port Adelaide halftime were beating the Swans around the footy by 15 clearances, and were doing pretty well in the contested game. Just the big thing was the Swans were able to really dominate with ball movement. So if the Swans really bring out their elite foot skills, that's certainly going to be a key area for them should they win this game. Both sides have plenty of finals experience too. The past two runners-up as well. Let's remember these two sides. So you couldn't ask for much more of a deserving grand final matchup in my eyes. The Swans will definitely gain some experience and have some experience with a few of their past few finals games, especially that 2022 grand final. I don't think there would be many scars from that day. They're definitely past it now, and there's just been so many interviews since about how the group's been able to mentally reset. I've got her name, it's like 𝐬𝐿 something, but they did bring across from the Tigers one of the psychologists, one of the best I think in the country, and they've been a key part I think for the Swans mentally. They've been a lot more of a mentally and a physically tougher side this year, the Swans. And I did also listen to a Dane Zorko interview on the radio about how halfway through this season they were just wanting to get back to some of the basics and reset a bit mentally as well. So yeah, both sides have feel like refreshed a little bit and made some key adjustments in the second half of the season to get where they are today. It was a close game when they faced each other last time out. Granted, the Swans did have Hayward playing one leg and Papley and also Rampy go out of the game, so you probably can't judge that game too much, but it's going to be a ripper unless a team doesn't mentally turn up. This one, I think, just has to be close. We talked a little bit about it earlier, the Lions, 2 finals in a row, so you know, how their bodies hold up. The Swans are a little bit more fresher to this contest, but sometimes it can be a bit of a myth. When you have a bit more of a closer game, you are more able to win key contests and be a little bit more sharpened up to win some critical contests in and under. And if you've had a few easy games like the Swans had a bit of a walk in the park last week, I think the Lions could be a little bit more, I guess, physically and mentally turned up for this sort of contest, knowing what they're going to get. And of course, the venue itself. Lions, big prelim final win at the MCG. When was the last time the Swans played the MCG? Back in April. So I think the Lions probably have a bit more of that venue advantage. They've been able to play a few more games at the MCG as of late compared to the Swans. But you know, the coaches will obviously say the venue stuff is just all a bit of a unnecessary thing to look at, but still is a bit of a consideration. So I've been rambling on for quite some time, just giving my thoughts on each team's strengths. I've just loved watching both these sides this year. I've been fortunate as a Sydney supporter to finish on top of the table, win 2 finals, go into grand final, but Brisbane, they're going to get plenty of love, I reckon. If you're not a Swan supporter, you're probably more inclined to cheer on the Lions, given they haven't been in as many grand finals as the Swans. And geez, it's going to be heartbreaking for the loser. Either the Lions, if they lose this game, they'll lose 2 grand finals in a row. But as for the Swans, if they drop this game, they're going to have 4 grand final losses in 10 years. So that's not a good figure for John Longmire either. So massive ramifications for the loser. Both quality teams these two have been. So who do I think wins the game of football? Oh, dearie me. There's just, when I look at the Swans, there's just visions of me thinking, I just feel like Brisbane, with the past 2 games they have played, they played the MCG last week too, that probably gives them a little bit of the leg up, like the Dogs in 2016, where they're just going to obliterate them in the contest, just go another gear with intensity. But then at the other side of the coin, if the Swans bring their best, I just think they win this game. Their best is the best in the competition. They've been able to show it this year. The turnover game is just extremely damaging. They defend really well as a back 6. And there's just been so many questions this year. Can you stop Heaney? Can you stop Gould? And can you stop Warner? Because they can just have big moments in games, as they've been able to show this season. The Swans have finished off games the best out of any other side, but Brisbane, you've got to look at their second halves. They've been excellent too. They've been able to adjust for the past 2 finals games. I think if Brisbane are able to really outdo the Swans around the footy, I think they are just a little bit better with the Swans with their clearance game. I know McInerney's a big out, but they're still able to really be able to win first possession in and under with those really good ball-winning midfielders. 𝐼𝐻𝐿, 𝐸𝐿, Ashcroft, I think, could have a smokily good game too. Both sides definitely will bring the intensity, the heat, the pressure as well. Who can out-pressure their opponent? I think whoever can be the side with a higher pressure factor index, or whatever the number is, will definitely be a key factor to win this game too. So this one could really go either way. I still think deep down, the Lions could genuinely pinch this one. I just have that slight feeling in my mind. But as I've said before, I just think if Sydney are able to bring out their best, they win this game. So I reckon the Swans are going to knock off the Lions in this grand final. It's going to be a beauty. This one really going to go either way. But I just think the Swans, or even the Lions too, both teams are hungry for a flag. And I just think Sydney, 4 past grand finals now, I think they're finally due for one. They've been the best side in the competition all year. So I think that will carry over. And they'll find a way to knock off the Lions and win by 14 points. I think they'll be more fresher for this game too. They had that really tough finals win over the Giants, so that's probably prepped them up well for a grand final placement and just brought their strengths to the fore against Port Adelaide, who still were able to bring some heat and intensity early on. But yeah, they cruised to victory, of course. But yeah, the Swans for me, I think they'll find a way to knock off the Lions here. I think their foot skills and ball movement and their turnover game could be the difference in this game, and their ability to punish off the turnover is the best out of any team in the comp in 2024 as well. So the Swans to win it by 14 points. Let's quickly go over who I think will be the highest goal scorer in Norm Smith-Medal, as you've been able to see on your screen. So Norm Smith-Medal, just feeling it's got to be Heaney. I think if we win this game, Isaac Heaney will take home the Norm Smith. He's had 2 unbelievable finals games so far. Why can't he go out and have a brilliant grand final performance? Just his ability to win contested ball is so clean. He's brilliant overhead. I think Dunkley, throughout stages of this game could shut them down really well. But with a player like 𝐴𝐸, he can go forward. When 𝐴𝐸 goes forward, sometimes they can be a bit of a mismatch in defence. So they'll just kick it on 𝐴𝐸's head, like 𝐓𝐡𝐿𝐴 𝐴𝐸 a few times was on 𝐼𝐗𝐥𝐝 in the forward 50 last time out. So they've definitely got to get that matchup right when 𝐴𝐸 does go forward for the Lions, of course. But 𝐴𝐸, for me, I just think this is his time to own it. He's been, I think, one of the best players in the competition this year. And if the Swans win, he's going to be key to it. So 𝐴𝐸 for the '𝐼𝐻. And as for the highest goal scorer, I'd like to go over this one. Now, as I've been saying in this video, both sides' ability to have a high amount of even contributors in the forward half is definitely noticeable. So there might not be a player that necessarily gets a big bag of goals, but I still think in a grand final will happen. I'll go Joe Daniher. He usually has big games in final series. His grand final last year was epic, and yeah, I think he'll kick roughly 3 to 4 goals. And the Swans' key defenders are a little bit undersized. Joe is able to take those contested marks for the ball. Could really have a say in this game, and yeah, can kick some big goals from outside 50. His backup ruck ability is pretty good too. And you assume maybe he does a few more ruck contests than what he would if 𝐸𝐸 was playing. So yeah, Daniher to kick the most goals with this game. I'll go Daniher to kick 4. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is me having a yarn about this grand final. Plenty to chat about, and then I could go on for a little bit more. Just love rambling about these two sides and the matchups and who could win this area of the game. So it's going to be a beauty. As I said before, both teams' strengths very similar. They stack up. Who can execute better? Who can win the key moments? I think that's going to be really big with this game of football. So the Swans, I reckon, win by 14. And hopefully they do get up as a 𝐼𝐻𝐸 supporter. But if you are going to the grand final, best of luck. If you're a Lions supporter, best of luck to you, your mob as well. If you get up, I mean, it's going to be one of the best feel-good stories, I think, of this season for Brisbane if they're able to win this game. But I just think the Swans, best team all year. I think they're mentally and physically prepared for this game, whilst the Lions have gone a bit more of an unorthodox route. The Swans to eke out the Lions and win by 14. Thanks very much for tuning in, everybody. Going to be going to the game this weekend, so stay tuned on the channel for the vlog, of course. Really excited. Enjoy the rest of the build-up to the grand final, and, of course, this weekend too. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you have gone on to enjoy today's video as well, fellas. And until next time, I'll talk to you later. See you later, fellas.